All right, welcome back to Uriel's Lantern. This channel is really devoted to alchemy and personal alchemy. And so one of the places that I like to start when doing any kind of tarot reading is this oracle deck, Cries of the Souls. It looks like Cries of the Skulls, but it's Cries of the Souls oracle deck. And so I pulled out one card for us already, and it's Personal Karma. I decide the weight of my inner baggage. All right, so let's go get a little cleansing here, burn off a little sage, get us a fresh, energetic start to this whole thing. And so, I was asking the guides and angels, what are we going to talk about? And the first thing that they want to talk about is personal karma. And, this is sort of the weight of our decisions. And, a lot of you know what karma is, but a good portion of the alchemical experience is getting rid of this from us. So, the sages talk about converting it from karma to dharma, but you basically got to work this off, and it's not just what you're doing in this lifetime; it's what you're doing from all of your lifetimes. And that if 5 years ago you punched some kid in the face and you haven't paid off your debt for that, well, you got to go deal with it. So whether it happens in this life or the next, the pain that you've caused, you gotta pay it. And people that have harmed you, they're going to have to pay it too. So, one of the practices of doing the radiant pathway is we have to release all this stuff. And, some of it you can just release by trying to forgive yourself, trying to forgive the other. Some of it you're going to have to get punched in the face yourself to go experience what you did. And you get some of that in your life review. I don't know if you're familiar with the near-death experience version of that, but you basically have these glowing orbs, and inside the orb there's that experience, and you grab that orb and you're kind of taken back into that moment where you're both the in this case the puncher and the punchee, and you experience the jaw getting broken by the puncher, but you also experience the pain that you've caused if you're the one that does that damage. So some of this is small enough that you can forgive it off, forgive yourself, forgive them, and move past it just in your normal lifetime. And then other times you have to deal with the fact that you have some stored up karma. So I don't know. I think that's a great place to start. What's the whole channel is about trying to figure out how do you alchemize the stuff that's in there from victim to victorious, to from pain to preparation to just being able to move forward. So I got a deck here. This is sort of your standard beginner tarot. Nothing fancy about it. I forget the name. But let's go pull a couple cards here, and we're going to do this kind of looking at this from the perspective of, hey, our objective is to alchemize our past so that we can grow. And, of course, the very first card that we get here is going to be the Five of Swords, which is all about conflict. But, this one is appearing in reverse. So here we're talking about compromise, we're talking about solutions, and moving on, forgetting the past resentments. Which, frankly speaking, if I wanted a card that matches, personal karma as a starting point, releasing that conflict, I would put as the highest possible thing that you could be doing. So, that might happen in your meditative practice. That might happen, first, these things, I like to settle them first in heaven, right? Put it to my angels, put it to my guides, here's some questions, here's my thoughts. Let's do some Reiki on it. Maybe I'll do Reiki with my partner, figure out whatever the hell is going on, and have that be a method where I start there, and then we move into the what is the conflict, what is the resolution, doing that in our actual lived experience as a second step. All right, next up, let's go look at this. All right, so now we got the Four of Cups, and this one is not reversed. So, this is sort of you have three cups, you're not happy with those cups. The spirit may actually be bringing you a fourth cup. That's sort of like the Ace of Cups that's sitting in the background, which I like to think of as the Angel of Cups. And the Ace of Cups is being brought to you in part because you're either sort of depressed, you're bored, you missed out on something, you're just kind of frustrated by the experience that you've had. And that might be because you've experienced a bunch of conflict. I mean, if you're doing alchemy, if you're like at the point of your life where you're like, I have to do personal alchemy now, you're probably not like the regular bird that just lives in your town, right? Like you've seen some shit, you've gone through some shit, and you didn't like find alchemy as like some fun life path. You're like, I don't know how else to do this without some alchemy. So yeah, we're going to start off by sort of like trying to resolve that conflict. And then after that, there's probably some depression, some frustration, some missed opportunities. And, again, this is sort of in this larger scheme of trying to get rid of your personal karma so that you can live like the cleanest, best, happiest, days possible. All right, let's check the next card. All right, so now we have death in reverse. So death in reverse, that's when you're like resisting change. You have this stagnation. You're like kind of fighting back against it. Now, that's not the only interpretation that's out there. You always have to look at the other cards that are in there. But, this thing is looking like you had some conflict and you're trying to get to resolution. You're bored, you're disappointed, you're frustrated, and you might yourself be the problem of like not releasing it, not fighting it. This death and rebirth is going to happen. That just is like part of this life plan. There's nothing you can do to undo that. So just get used to it. It's coming. But the more that we stop resisting it, the more that we just sort of like flow with it, the more that we're just like, hey, we're gonna let this be. The easier, the less painful, the less conflict we're gonna have as we're like trying to go deal with our personal karma. All right, let's get one more out here. And of course, you get freaking deceit. Now this one is actually in reverse. So let's make sure it's straight here. So that card is all about like when it's in the normal facing, it's kind of like your trickery, deceit, sneakiness. But when it's reversed, it's really about taking responsibility, moments of truth and honesty. And so in the like steps of the radiant pathway, we want to be honest with ourselves. We want to go ask ourselves, what harm has we caused? What harm, is there something I can confess to? Is there something I can release? What do I need to release? And then being honest in that experience. So, I asked Spirit to go help me out with this, and I think it did a great job today. Thank you, Spirit. These are basically perfect cards to help you go through this. That, the goal is ending your resentment. You might be a little bored and frustrated, but the universe is going to hand you new opportunities, but you got to go do the work. You can't just sit there like rejecting it and hoping that everything is different on its own. You got to go take responsibility, deal with this, man up, strap your rack, freaking go. All right, so let's go look at a couple angel cards here. So we have a 2-4-2-4, good times. So, that's your leisure, your rest. So I think that's some of the advice is like, you're worthy of affection, you're worthy of leisure, you're worthy of pleasure. And like, don't let all this stuff get you down. You gotta, part of this at the end, right after you've like dealt with your demons, dealt with your goblins, fought everything in existence, then you have to like find some peace, find some rest. Because if you got like clenched fists and you're still in like, a freaking crazy alchemist mode and you're not back to like some relaxed state, there's nothing that you're going to be able to receive. All right, the next card we got with 2002, the Void. So this is sort of longing, technology, ambition. You have more control over your life than you realize. Learn and execute what interests you. Turn things around. Gets better with time. There are plenty of friends to make, so go outside, have fun, and open up. Chill out. I read that a little off, but whatever. This is, again, it seems like the angels are suggesting the end of the process. So, by the time that you get to the end, you're supposed to be kind of relaxed and chilling, having some fun, getting in your meditation, touching ground, touch grass. All right. So now I love this too. This is we got 2222 feminine forces. And this is your relationship, balance, prosperity, efficiency, patience, and humility. So like, part of this, you have to go into the real world and you have to take action. But part of that, once you've taken some action, you got to wait and you got to be receptive. And that's when I think of your like feminine forces. You're the egg and the sperm comes to you. You sit there in your divine femininity and just attract. And that's not just for males, it's not just for women. It's just like you let the universe come to you. You have to embody both your masculine and feminine. So here, you can do everything by yourself, but life is to be shared. Partner up with the right spirit, and you'll become a force. Honor commitments and people around. Honor commitments and people around. Don't judge. Listen. Yeah, the card doesn't quite reflect what I think we're doing in this one, but it's being in that divine feminine presence so that you can receive. And just look at all the twos in there. 2s, 4s, 8s. Look for that kind of synchronicity when you're chilling and vibing in the space. All right, one more shuffle, and then our last card here. We'll take this. Then 1001, spiritual awakening, new beginnings, personal development, prioritizing creativity, a new phase in a religious or spiritual quest. You're going through a spiritual awakening, which can feel like the dark night of the soul. You're on the path to enlightenment. This too shall pass. I talked about this a little during my my Radiant Pathway, or I guess this was like a techniques video. And I would vacation up in a spot that was up in the middle of Vermont, and the closest grocery store was like 30 minutes away. And so if any of our friends who were visiting wanted to go to the grocery store, I would tell them, it's a 30-minute drive, and here's how you get there. It's not that complicated. But the biggest part is that like 20 to 25 minutes into the drive, you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. The rest of the road had lights or curves or signs or something, but you get to this one spot and there's like freaking nothing. So you're just driving, and like I've had people call me even after I give them directions that say, within about 25 minutes in, you were going to feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, and it's impossible that this is the right road or the right spot. And it just means you're 5 minutes away. And people will still call me and be like, I'm in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, great, you're 5 minutes from the right target. So that's what this thing is telling me, is that this, the spiritual understanding that you need, you're going to have this new phase, this new beginning. And even if it like feels off or just feels weird, you've been doing all this like other activity to try to like change your life. You get there, but you get there through this like roundabout way. You're going through this quest, and it's going to feel like the long dark night of the soul. There's parts of this that are long, they're shitty, it hurts, it's no fun, but you get there in the end. So just, you got to kind of like trust that process some. So here's your Alchemical Tarot. I guess today was, it's 1/13, January 13th. Thanks for being here, and hopefully to the handful of people that see this, I hope this helps you grow. I hope this helps you alchemize the hard things in your life.